Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Julie Baisden here at the Florida Center for Reading Research at Florida State University. And today we are going to cover part 2 of our webinar series for training your tutors. So today we're going to go over some of the evidence-based practices that are effective when working with struggling students or students that are in need of the tutoring services. We do have a panel joining us today that's going to present some information as well as answer some questions for us. So we're going to just go around briefly and allow everybody to introduce themselves. You will see some familiar faces from yesterday or the day before if you attended webinar 1. Again, I'm Dr. Julie Baisden here at FCRR, and we have representatives from the Department of Education. We have Lindsay Brown joining us this morning. Lindsay, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us this morning. My name is Lindsay Brown, and I'm the Executive Director of Just Read Florida. And we are so excited to be offering this tutoring training opportunity in collaboration with FCRR.
And then we also have Monica Reeves joining us from Department of Education.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I am a reading specialist here at Just Read Florida, and I'm happy to help support you guys in this exciting program and opportunity.
And then we also have Randy Shiver joining us from Department of Education.
Morning, everybody. I'm a reading specialist as well. I'm happy to be here with you today.
And then from our FCRR side, we have Nathan Archer, who is going to be monitoring our chat box for us and helping with all things technology as we go through our webinar this morning. And then we also have Dr. Lori Lee.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's great to see you here. Thank you for joining us. I am with FCRR, and I've been with the center for almost 6 years now. And I was previously with Just Read Florida, where I spent about 10 years. And so I saw your names pop up and recognize some familiar ones. And so it's good to get reacquainted with you. And we just appreciate the work that you're doing every day. So thanks for being here.
And then we also have Dr. Jennifer Gans joining us as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jenny Gans. I work alongside Julie Baisden as partnership with our Florida DOE folks on all things that have to do with this tutoring and many other things that you've probably seen coming your way.
All right, well, welcome everyone. So we wanted to take a minute to go over a few norms for today's webinar. First of all, thank you everyone for typing your name and district you represent in the chat box. We are going to be using the question and answer box throughout our presentation today to answer any questions. Our panel of experts is going to be monitoring that question box and answering the questions accordingly. If there are questions that require a more in-length discussion or a follow-up, we are more than happy to schedule additional time with your district through Zoom or a phone call if we need to discuss your question more at length. And then to note that this webinar is going to be recorded and shared on the FCRR website along with the Just Read Florida website in the very near future. So you will have access to the recording and the PowerPoint as well. And then lastly, we ask that you keep a positive mindset as we move through this presentation and know that we're here to support you and your efforts, we want them to be successful. And so whatever support you need as you move through this implementation process, know that Department of Education and FCRR is here to support you in this initiative. So today, our goals are going to be to share information with the representative that has been selected in your district to train tutors. So the goal for this session will be covering topics that trainers need to discuss with tutors on how to be more effective when they are in their tutoring sessions. So we will want you to make sure that your tutors understand how children become readers and the effective practices that they can use within tutoring. And then lastly, where to go to find resources to help within those tutoring sessions. One of the questions that we received yesterday, and I spoke with Randy briefly, and she can help answer this a little bit more, was can individual schools train their tutors? So Randy, did you want to talk a little bit more about that can individual schools train tutors, or does the training need to come from the district level administrators?
So district level administrators are required to follow the assurance. And so I think it would be a district decision. Districts should be here, district representatives, and doing the train the trainer and then rolling that out to their schools in their district. So that will be a district decision. Coming to this training today, you're meeting the assurance of coming to the FCRR training. And so then you would be rolling it out to the schools in your district, just making sure that you're following all of the language in the assurances.
Yes, so we had talked about if districts want to train their reading coaches or their literacy coaches, and then the literacy coaches train at the school level, that would be one way to work it. So there's several options as far as how you roll out the training. But again, as we talked about in webinar 1, this will be one of those roles of that implementation team to decide how the training will get to the tutors. And if you have any other questions, we can certainly talk with your district more about that. Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
So yesterday Tuesday, and in webinar 1, if you attended webinar 1 a few weeks ago, we talked about program selection and materials. So with FCRR, the goal is to provide you evidence-based tools and resources and support. The student center activities, which we'll talk more about later in this presentation, are a phenomenal supplemental resource that aligns very well with any curriculum and several reading skills, and recently has been aligned with BEST. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Whatever program selection that you choose or the materials that you choose, the tutors will need those materials provided to them, and they'll need additional tutoring, additional training time to work through those specific materials that your site chooses. So when beginning the training with your tutors, and in the invite today, you also received a PDF of the participants guide that you can use alongside this PowerPoint as a companion as you are working with your tutors. So to begin the training with your tutors, it'll be important to review the meaning of what a tutor is. You'll want to review the information that tutoring is an opportunity for students to receive additional support that aligns with the classroom instruction. This is also going to be an important time to stress to tutors how important their role is in the schools and in the classroom, and that it's your district's goal to really create this community of tutors and teachers and schools all working together to help the students make gains in reading. You want to also stress that that tutors are providing additional support. They are not providing core instruction. So anything that the tutor provides will be additional academic instructional time. It will not replace core instruction. And that tutors are going to be working with a student that is struggling in reading, and that you will have identified the specific reading skill in which the student will be working on. So that tutor will have materials aligned to exactly what that student needs. So in your participants guide, there are areas for the tutor to respond and to write. There's also a note page at the end for them to take notes as well. Another part of your training session will be discussing the tutor's roles and responsibilities. And the tutor's roles and responsibilities may change based on the district level and site level decisions. However, you'll want to review what your district decides regarding when tutoring will take place, how the sessions will be scheduled, the group size of students that the tutor should expect. So remember, we discussed that ideally it will be one-on-one, but groups up to 4 are also effective. So however your district decides to implement that, it'll be important to stress and explain that to tutors so they know what the expectation is as far as group size. You will also want to make sure that your tutors understand the importance of communication with teachers and school level administrators. And then lastly, how to and when to use informal assessment data. The informal assessment data that is selected and used will be determined by the school site. In 2021, the U.S. Department of Education released this report that talked about the key factors of effective tutoring. And so this was covered at length in webinar 1, but we wanted to include this slide again so that tutors can understand in detail what the expectations are. Again, remember that these 9 factors are recommendations. Most of them are recommendations. They're not requirements. One of the recommendations would be that it needs to be aligned with best standards. So you'll want to go over these effective practices with your tutors. This slide can be adjusted based on what you choose to implement at your site and or district level. Throughout the training material, there are several videos that are going to be linked in this PowerPoint. This will be really the beginning of the training for your tutors. This video links to a video that shows what tutoring means to students. And so it's really through the eyes of the student. And so this video link will serve as an icebreaker for your tutors. And you'll want to play this video and allow tutors to hear what it means to be a tutor and to hear the impact that what they're choosing to do has on students. And during the video, you will want your tutors to be allowed some time to write down what it means to them and how they feel about tutoring, and then allow some time for them to talk and share. And again, there's a space on the participants guide that allows them to write and reflect on the video. The next section of the training that you will want to go over with your tutors is going to be the reading content knowledge. And this section is going or can be adapted depending on who your tutor is. So for example, many districts are using retired teachers or current teachers. And so that audience may not need as much information in this section as compared to a community volunteer or a parent. So depending on your audience of tutors, this section can be adapted accordingly. In your participants guide, there is a section for tutors to write down the meaning of foundational reading terms. And as a trainer, you will explore and discuss these terms. And as a reminder, the tutoring program is targeting our K-3 students and prioritizing our K-1 students, which is why we are focusing on the phonological awareness, the phonics, and fluency. And so depending on the criteria that you use to select students, if your tutors are focusing on 2nd and 3rd grade students, or maybe you have less kindergarteners that qualify for the tutoring services and the majority of your students participating are in 2nd and 3rd grade, you may also want to include terms with the vocabulary and comprehension as well. But for this PowerPoint and this training, we have included the phonological awareness, the phonics, and the fluency. So here we talk about phonological awareness being a good predictor of later reading success or difficulty. So really making sure that your incoming kindergartners and your 1st grade students have a strong phonological awareness foundation. And then our phonemic awareness is the ability to identify and manipulate individual sounds and spoken words. So these 2 skills being the very first skills that students need to have mastered in order to move forward in becoming strong readers. The next foundational term that you'll want to cover, and again in your participants guide, there's a box that has the term and space for tutors to write down the definition and any examples that are included as you're discussing these foundational terms. The next term is going to be phonics, and phonics instruction teaches really the relationship between the letters and sounds. And this is when students really start being able to put the letters and sounds together in order to start becoming readers. So as a district, you'll want to cover phonics and phonics instruction at a more deeper level once the decision about materials has been made. And the last foundational reading term that you'll want to cover is fluency. And so fluency, again, is the ability to read with automaticity and accuracy and proper expression when reading text. And in the younger grades, in K and 1, fluency is often modeled through read-alouds or recorded books, peer readings, and discussions of the elements seen within the text. So it'll be important to explain to your tutors that modeling fluency in the early grades can simply be done through modeled read-alouds. So one example we wanted to include here of an activity that would be great for a tutoring session when working on fluency is a teacher providing a book, or the literacy coach providing a book to tutors and reading that book aloud to a group of students. This is an activity that really strengthens fluency so students can hear correctly modeled text. And then there's also additional activities through the Student Center activities on the FCRR website that support fluency skills and fluency practice in grades 3. So your tutoring session could include reading aloud a book, modeling that read aloud, and then allowing students to work on one of the Student Center activities that emphasizes reading skills within the fluency band. So in your training of tutors, you will want to allow tutors time to preview materials that are selected and allow them time to identify some of these foundational reading skills that are present within the lesson and or curriculum. So with your tutors, you will discuss those 3 foundational reading skills and vocabulary and comprehension if you're looking at your 2nd and 3rd grade students. This is a definition of reading, and you will allow tutors to read this definition and then respond on their participant's guide. And this definition is important because we really want to emphasize that reading is not an easy skill. It is a complex skill, and it is also an active process, and that students have to be engaged in the learning process and be given ample opportunities to practice reading skills in order to become stronger readers. These elements that are defined on this slide do come from the U.S. Department of Education article that was linked previously a few slides back. However, this serves as a nice overview of what tutors should be aware of when helping students that need additional support in reading. So one idea, if you are working on a training with your tutors, is to divide your tutors up into 5 groups and provide them with chart paper. And at the top of the chart paper, you could simply write each of these titles, making meaning from print, and then so on the top of the chart paper. And then allow your tutors to respond to that topic. Give them time to reflect on what that means or what they think that means, and then rotate your groups of tutors through 5 rotations, allowing each group to reflect and add information to the chart paper. And this just allows everyone a chance to contribute to the group, share what they need or what they feel that this element incorporates. And then it allows you as a trainer of the tutors to see where more training needs to happen if they are understanding the different elements of reading. And then it also allows the tutors an opportunity to learn from each other. So again, depending on your audience of tutors or your group of tutors, this may need to be adjusted down or up depending on your audience. This is an overview of the simple view of reading, and the simple view of reading is definitely more complex than simple, but it serves as a nice framework for understanding how reading works. It also serves as a nice grounding theory in the understanding of the process of reading. So what you see here on this slide is a summary of what the simple view of reading entails, along with a link at the bottom that takes you to a short video. And the video serves as a nice general overview for participants to view and discuss. You will want to allow time for your tutors to watch the video and respond on their participant's guide. And the simple view of reading really explains the foundational reading elements needed in order to build strong and successful readers. Throughout the PowerPoint and throughout this training, there will be discussion questions provided, and the discussion questions are an opportunity for tutors and trainers to talk and discuss the information that has previously been presented. And it also serves as an opportunity for the trainer or the facilitator to assess the level of understanding and if there are specific areas that need to be reviewed before moving on. And so this discussion question is asking tutors to write down a summary of what the simple view of reading is. And then in addition to your participants guide, there will also be a facilitator's guide provided. So you will have the answers to these discussion questions or key elements that should be included as you are working through these discussion questions with your tutors. So this is a visual or a graphic of Scarborough's reading rope, and the reading rope theory expands on the simple view of reading. And the reading rope is a great visual of how the different elements in the areas of reading work together in order to build strong reading skills and ultimately strong readers. In the participants guide, there's also a graphic that is identical to the graphic that is on the screen, and it has blanks available for tutors to go in and to fill in the different subsets that are contained within the reading rope. The video link that you see on this page is also a brief video of the reading rope, and you will want to allow participants, they can work in partners to complete this activity, but allowing them to watch the video and then to fill in their reading rope. This reading rope is nice because it really demonstrates to many audiences the importance of building these subsets of skills and how they work together and intertwine to really become that skilled reader, which is what our goal is. We do want to let you know that the videos linked in this presentation are all free and easy to access and share with participants. But if there is any issue accessing the video or any of the links happen to be broken, please let us know and we will fix that immediately. So word recognition is one of the main elements within the simple view of reading along with the reading rope. And word recognition is extremely important because it is the foundation in which students build upon in order to become fluent readers. So word recognitions begin way back with the concept of print. And so this is a systematic way of looking at how we build reading skills. So depending on the data that your student has, you will determine where they need to begin. But really having a concept of print, solidified knowledge and concept of print is the starting point, and then moving towards those phonological and phonemic awareness skills. So you'll want to explain to tutors, and we'll go to the next slide, explain to tutors that this is a progression. And so again, to become a skilled reader, they need the ample time and the opportunity to practice decoding skills and work with knowledge of letter sound patterns. And so this video that is linked in this slide demonstrates a student that is working through decoding. And this little girl works very hard, and she is sounding out each letter multiple times. And then about 45 seconds later, she finally is able to blend those three letters together and she forms the word. And so this little light bulb goes off and the little girl is so excited that she is able to blend and say this word, and it makes the connection. So we wanted to include this video because oftentimes non-teachers, or if you're working with community members or volunteers, do not understand how many times it takes a student to work through the decoding process in order to finally be able to code. So we want to stress with our tutors that they need to be providing that ample amount of time and multiple times going through sounds and decoding in order to help that student make the connection in order to become that strong reader. This slide is a demonstration of how students learn. And over the next several slides, we're going to go through each of these elements. And within a tutoring session, it's going to be important to include and incorporate the different elements that are seen on this slide to support learning with our students. So the first being explicit instruction, and then scaffolding, corrective feedback, active participation, and then finally differentiated instruction. So we're going to look at each of these elements in our next slide. So the first element that tutors will need to be aware of and understand is explicit instruction. So in your training session, you'll want to allow about 15 minutes for this activity. This is a video. It is titled Utilizing Explicit Instruction, and it is by Anita Archer. And during the video presentation, you will want to encourage participants to write down notes as they are watching. After the video, you would ask participants to discuss what their thoughts were. There's also a section in your participants guide that has tutors select key elements or key words that they heard throughout the video that serve as a nice summary of what explicit instruction is. This is the second part of the activity from the previous slide. And with the participants, you'll want to view the video. This video is part of the Foundational Reading Skill PLC guide, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later. And again, you'll want to encourage your tutors to identify elements of explicit instruction that they see within this reading lesson. You'll want to also allow your tutors time to share in whole group. And this also serves as the opportunity for tutors to really see the language that should be included in tutoring sessions. These videos, there's also other videos that we will share with you in a minute. It really allows people to see the examples. So I think tutors especially will learn through being able to see some of this hands-on and live examples of an effective reading lesson. So this video really serves nicely as being able to view that explicit instruction and see how the teacher works with a small group of students. And it is very applicable to what they would be doing in a tutoring session. So again, here we have another discussion question. And this discussion question would allow tutors the opportunity to discuss what explicit instruction is and who benefits from explicit instruction and review those elements that were discussed in the previous slide. The next skill that should be included within a tutoring session, and we have Dr. Lee is going to talk to us a little bit more about scaffolding. And we did want to point out that research tells us when we provide support to students, we want to provide that explicit instruction and support and then gradually remove it as their knowledge or skill increases. And so that's how we build those confident, strong readers, is a gradual release of support and a gradual release of that explicit instruction to allow them to become independent readers. So Dr. Lee is going to talk to us a little bit more about the importance of scaffolding. And then on our next slide, we have a graphic that serves as a nice overview of what scaffolding is. So Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Basin. You made some excellent points in regard to scaffolding. Absolutely. So the whole intent of scaffolding is to gradually remove it as students become more independent. And so we want to help them as they strive to do those tasks that they might not be able to do on their own. And this slide reflects, striving to get a correct answer, but also learning a skill would be applicable as well. And you can see some of those elements of student learning are going to be included in scaffolding. And here on your screen, you see just an infographic that was produced by the Regional Educational Lab Southeast that gives us a visual of what scaffolding entails and kind of what it looks like. And so I just want to briefly go through some of these elements that are a part of scaffolding. And so if we start at the bottom, we start with assessment. And we've talked about assessment a little bit already this morning. And so you'll need to decide as a district and even at the school level. What kinds of data are going to be provided to your tutors? And how are they going to use that data? Will they have the capacity to interpret it? Will someone help them do that? What is the expertise of your tutors in regard to that? Are they going to be responsible for gathering data on their own? And so those are some questions that you'll need to answer as you proceed with your tutoring programs. But assessment is the base. We need to know what to do. And in order for us to know that, we need to assess our students so we have that information available to us, and our tutors have that information available to them so they know where to go next with their students. And then there's that planning element, and that's so important. Your tutors need to know that they need to be well planned as they get ready to meet with their students, that they need to know exactly what they're going to do, and they need to have the materials provided for them, or they need to be trained on those materials, certainly. So they need to be well planned. And then corrective feedback, and we've talked a little bit about that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes, but just a few comments in regard to corrective feedback. This feedback needs to be specific and it needs to be explicit. It really doesn't help students if we just tell them they did a great job or that their answer wasn't correct. Our tutors need to know how to provide that feedback that is very specific to what the student is doing and what he or she is learning. There's a wonderful video that I'd encourage you to access. It's Austin's Butterfly. And if you haven't seen Austin's Butterfly, it's about 5 or 6 minutes long, and it is a teacher guiding students through providing feedback to one of their peers. And it's a wonderful video. Again, I would highly recommend that you take a look at that. It's a wonderful example of providing some corrective feedback that is very helpful to the student as they progress through their learning. I also watched a video just the other day, and the teacher said something. I actually wrote it down because I thought it was very insightful. She said, "I guide my students where to look, but I don't tell them what to see." And I think that was really an insightful statement. We want our tutors to guide the students, right, and provide that support, but we don't want them to do the work for them. And so I think that statement really does a good job of expressing that. We provide that support, but ultimately it's the student that does the work. And then ultimately that leads us to then procedures. Procedures need to be in place in order for students to know exactly what their expectations are. And students always feel better when there's a structure and a procedure and a plan for them. And so it needs to be clear, whether your teachers make it clear, your tutors make it clear regarding the procedures of what happens when they meet with their tutors. Are they expected to gather their materials and sit down and begin work? Are they waiting for their tutor to begin that lesson? What are those procedures? What is the structure of that time? And that prevents a wasting of time and provides for efficiency, absolutely. That evidence-based instruction is the foundation of what our tutors will be doing. We want to make sure that the instruction that they're providing is grounded in evidence. We don't have time to waste. And so we want to make sure that what our tutors are working with, the materials, the instructional kinds of strategies that they use, are grounded in evidence. And finally, that active engagement piece, where students are actually engaged in the task, where they can demonstrate their learning. And our tutors then again can know where it is that they need to provide that support. And so all of these are elements of scaffolding. And so as your tutors prepare to work with their students, they need to know about all of these elements and how they will be addressed in their tutoring sessions with their students.
All right, thank you so much. So to piggyback off of what Dr. Lee said, with scaffolded instruction, there is a hierarchy of elements that also need to be included within scaffolding. So again, to review that it is a gradual release of responsibility. So with your tutors, you'll really want to stress that these are struggling readers. These are students that need additional support, but we want to work towards that gradual release of responsibility. So an instructional model that is typically used, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is the I do, we do, you do. So really providing that example, which is the I do, and then allowing the tutor and the student to work together, which is the we do, and then allowing the student to do it on their own, which is the you do. So the explicit instruction and modeling are the pieces or the elements that take place in the I do instruction, and they also take place in the we do instruction. Providing opportunities for guided practice. So we are not just teaching the students and then turning them loose to do it on their own, but having them work through practice that provides some guided opportunities, and then allowing the students the independent practice. The independent practice is the most important piece to really see if students understand. And think time and wait time are okay. So if it takes the student a little bit of time, or there's a little bit of silence in their processing and thinking, those are okay skills and okay elements to happen within a tutoring session. The most important thing is that the students are making the connections and ultimately moving towards that goal of independence and being a strong reader. So part of the scaffolding that we talked about is corrective feedback. And so corrective feedback needs to be clearly communicated and timely. And it also needs to be developmentally appropriate. So we want to explain to tutors that we want to move past phrases like good job, or no, that's not right. We want to provide clear, communicated, explicit feedback so that students understand what mistake they made and how to avoid that mistake moving forward. This video that is linked on this slide is a great example of how to provide positive feedback. And even when the student does something well, acknowledging that and providing that positive feedback so that that relationship between the tutor and the student is solidified, and that student has trust within that tutor and they're willing to work with that tutor and move forward. Another element that we talked about is active participation. And this is a really nice quote that sums up active participation. And so the highlighted piece of this, and this is where you will want to talk with your tutors and make sure they understand that active participation is allowing students more time with an activity that really requires students to think and respond and be engaged. And it also allows the opportunity for you as the tutor or you as the teacher to verify what the student does and does not know. So oftentimes teachers and tutors can mistake that the student is learning and that the student is listening if the student is sitting quietly. But that behavior is very misleading, because we know with our struggling readers, oftentimes they are sitting quietly and listening, but they are not engaged. So providing that active participation and that active engagement is the bridge between a struggling reader and then moving towards that stronger reader goal. So this is a video about active participation, and in your participants guide, you will want to allow about 10 minutes for this activity. And this is a great lesson because it demonstrates what the teacher does to help encourage students to participate in the lesson. So you will want to allow your tutors to view some of those elements and write down thoughts of strategies and ideas of how they can get their students to engage in the lessons, because your tutors may come across some very reluctant learners, learners that may have not experienced success in school up to this point. And so we go back to that element of fostering a positive student-tutor relationship. And so this video really does a nice job of showing how to encourage students to participate. So here we have another discussion question, and this discussion question will be based off the video that you will have just shown in your training to your tutors, and it will serve as a follow-up to an open discussion of how tutors can help engage students. Another piece of tutoring is differentiated instruction, and by nature, this tutoring initiative is already going to incorporate differentiated instruction. And differentiated instruction, again, is adapting instruction to the response of the academic skills and the needs of the student in order to improve the overall reading level and the reading skills within the student. So the instructional materials that you choose will align with the best standards, and they will align with the skills and your core reading curriculum, but they will be a supplemental resource that you will use to help students through the reading process. So these are some resources and materials, and Dr. Gans is going to talk to us a little bit more about the FCRR student activities. And I did see a question in the chat about a resource of where to go to hear about the proper sounds and blending of sounds. The UFly Virtual Teaching Hub through the UF Literacy Institute is a great resource that reviews how to make those sounds, and it reviews how to blend the sounds correctly. And then if you need additional resources and materials, we are more than happy to send you some additional links. So at this time, we're going to go through the FCRR student center activities and how those materials and resources can be used within a tutoring session. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the activity within your your participants guide that goes along with the student center activities. So Dr. Gans?
Hi, sure. So many of you are familiar, excuse me, with the student center activities. They've been around for quite some time. We had started creating these activities way back prior to 2010. So it's quite some time. But this last year in 2021 and just finished recently in 2022, we revamped and redesigned all of our activities in grades K to 5. They are all on our website. The link is there, and it's the one that's the top link that says Student Center Activities, Florida Center for Reading Research. And you will see there all of our activities in grades K to 5. The graphic on the screen shows you, and that is also on our website, shows you and can show your tutors or anyone who's working with the students how to use the student center activity. It shows the component, the subcomponent, how many students should be there. That's the little icon of the two children at the top, or the two little people at the top. Some activities are done independently, some are done in a very small group, some are done in a little bit of a larger group. Either way is fine, and many people can use the student center activities. Just a reminder that these activities are a supplement. They are not a curriculum in their own right, but they can be used with any curriculum or program that you all are using within your districts. Students can complete the activities, like I said earlier, in small groups, pairs, or individually. So you are aware, we did align the activities to the best that we could to the new Florida's best standards. So we do have a separate link that is only the activities that are aligned. Not all of our activities were able to be aligned when these activities were created and revamped over the years. They're sort of standards agnostic. They're meant to go with the skills. And what we did was we went through every single activity and the standards books and did the best we could to align as many activities as we can. So there is a filter tool down in the second link that says best standards aligned. There's a filter tool there. You can see all of the aligned activities, or you can search by standard, you can search by component, or you can search by activity name. So it's really a great feature, and we hope it's very helpful to you.
All right, so in part of your planning, you will want to allow tutors the opportunity and the time to plan and look at these resources. So one of the activities in your participants guide is exploring one of the student center activities and breaking down these different components and what they mean. So the student center activities are definitely a supplemental material. They're not a standalone core curriculum, but they align nicely with many, many core curriculums and many standards that you are already teaching within your classrooms. And so part of your tutoring sessions could be working on an identified skill with the student center activities, but you will want to allow time for tutors to create the activity. If you're going to use those, there is some prep work to the students' activities before they can be implemented. Dr. Gans, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I was just going to throw in that I completely forgot to mention the
Yeah.
teacher resource guide.
Oh,
So
yeah.
on either link, whether you go to the entire list of student center activities or the aligned activities, at the bottom of the options to the left-hand side, you'll see the grade bands, and then underneath that, you will see the teacher resource guide. And that teacher resource guide was developed to assist folks in utilizing the student center activities. It's meant to be used to show folks how to use the student center activities. So you'll see some valuable information in there, including working definitions of phonics and fluency and vocabulary and those types of things that Dr. Baisden was talking about earlier as well.
Yeah, and then the student center activities are really designed to be used with any of tutors. So even our tutors that are not our retired teachers or our veteran teachers, parents can use them, community volunteers can use them. So a variety of audiences can definitely use the student center activities and have a successful tutoring session. And then this is information that we did cover in webinar 1, but we're going to cover again, and Dr. Lee is going to talk to us a little bit more about how this resource can be used as you're moving forward with training your tutors or providing ongoing training with tutors. Dr. Lee?
Thank you so much. So you've had a little bit of an introduction to the Institute of Education Sciences Practice Guide. This practice guide, Foundational Skills to Support Reading for Understanding in Kindergarten through 3rd grade, was developed by a panel of experts. That's the way all of the IES practice guides are developed. Dr. Barbara Foreman actually chaired the panel that developed this practice guide. And the panel consisted of researchers and also practitioners. And so the panel comes together, they review tons and tons of research that is credible, that meets a criteria that has been established by the What Works Clearinghouse. And then the panel develops recommendations. And these recommendations are meant for those in the field, those who are practicing in the classroom. And so you see the IES practice guide there depicted on your screen, along with those recommendations. And those recommendations are really all about foundational reading skills, what our students need to know and what our teachers need to teach. So what our tutors need to reinforce when it comes to foundational reading skills to build the reading abilities of our students, especially in grades K-3. This resource, if you peruse it, you'll find not only the recommendations, but there are how-to steps that are also included for each recommendation. So how do you get to that place? What do you do to teach students academic language skills? And what do you do to develop awareness of segments of sound and speech and how they are linking to letters, etc.? So there are examples of activities within the practice guide. There are potential challenges or obstacles that are mentioned, and then possible solutions to those obstacles are also presented. And so this is a wonderful resource for teachers in your schools and also your tutors. There have been a variety of resources that also have been developed based on this practice guide. And I've put a bunch of links in the chat, a link to this particular practice guide, along with a link to the professional learning community that has been created that is a companion tool to the practice guide. And so the PLC just provides a session by session review of each how-to step with activities and with videos. And the videos are really, really well done. And they show actual teachers and actual classrooms working with students in regard to these particular recommendations and the how-to steps associated with them. So the PLC and the videos can be a wonderful resource for your tutors if they want to see really what this looks like. What does instruction look like being delivered in a small group? And so I'd encourage you to check that out. Another resource that has been developed, again, in association with this particular practice guide, are a series of 4 teacher guides to promote family involvement in literacy. And so I put a link to the first grade teacher guide in the chat. Take a look at it. Again, it has videos, it has activities for families, and it's very comprehensible for teachers. And so that's a resource I just wanted to provide to you as a bonus, so to speak, along with the Supporting Your Child's Reading at Home website. This can be a valuable resource for your tutors. Have them peruse that website. It is also, again, based on this practice guide. The language there is meant for families, so it's in lay language, along with videos and also activities that can be done with students in relationship to these particular recommendations. And finally, the last link, and this is truly a bonus resource, just this week, a new practice guide was released having to do with middle school literacy interventions. And so it is absolutely brand new. And so I don't know that you'll have tutors working with middle school students, but if you do, that will be a valuable resource for them to take a look at and for your teachers to review as well, along with you. And so I encourage you, just Google IES practice guides. There are a number of them that you'll find on a variety of topics, and they are similarly structured. So you'll find those recommendations, you'll find the evidence base within them, you'll find the, in most cases, how-to steps, how to implement those recommendations and potential challenges or obstacles and potential solutions. And so these are really wonderful resources that we certainly want to get in the hands of our practitioners. And so I'd really encourage you, check out the website, just Google IES practice guides. You'll find this practice guide along with a bunch of others that are related to a variety of topics. And so this certainly can be a valuable resource for you at the district level, for your teachers, and also for your tutors.
Thank you. And to follow up, this website or this PowerPoint, along with this recording and several additional links, will be housed on the FCRR website, and there will be a link on the Just Read Florida website very, very soon. And so that all of these links that we are discussing and have included will be available for you to go back as your district is digesting all of this information and then moving forward with working with your tutors. So again, here we have another discussion question that you will want to allow time for your tutors to discuss and to talk out within small groups or whole group. And after you have gone through the resources on the previous slide, really allowing them an opportunity to identify where they can go to find additional resources and how to help students that are struggling in reading. So as a reminder, the district or the school site will determine the program that you will be tutoring from. The slides and the PowerPoint and the training that you will provide to your tutors will serve as additional resources that they can explore and use and learn from, and that the tutoring training that this PowerPoint covers really goes over the effective elements that should take place within a tutoring session and how to be an effective tutor. So at this time, we have completed the tutor training, and we have about 5 minutes available for questions and to go over any thoughts or comments that you have. My email address, and we'll put it in the chat box, is jbaisden@fsu.edu. And if you need a copy of the recording and or the PowerPoint from today, I'll be happy to send that out to you. And so we will, I will check in with our panelists to see if there were any questions that we had any proof of attendance. Yes, so just reach out. Let me put my email address in here and just send me a email and I will send you your proof of attendance if you need that for your district. All right, Randy, did we have any questions that came through? I saw that people were asking about sites to go to, or the site to hear the different sounds and the decoding of sounds. And I see that was linked. There was one other question about group recommendation size. With the U.S. Department of Education, the recommendation is one-on-one up to groups of 4. So really depending on the skill of the specific student that you're working with. Some students are going to work better in a one-on-one setting, and you may have a student that is working on a very specific skill. And then groups up to 4 are also effective when working with small groups of students. What we don't want is a large group, because it's going to, one, overwhelm the tutor, because they are not always going to be teachers. And then secondly, the effectiveness of the tutoring session declines with that when you start having those larger groups of students. So one-on-one, but up to 4 or any number in between has shown to be effective with tutoring specific instruction.
There's a question in the chat box. Do you have any information reading iReady and whether it is evidence-based?
So in webinar 1, we included several sites: What Works Clearinghouse, Evidence for ESSA, and Proven Tutoring. We encourage you to look at those sites to explore any of the programs that you're thinking about using.
Dr. Basin?
Yes.
In answer to that question, on the For Educators website, on FCRR's website, there's a bar, an option, a tab that says For Educators. If you folks, if you click on that link to the left-hand side, you're going to see a reading repository. In that repository is lots of different programs and their ratings with WWC or ESSA. And if they are indeed, what the evidence looks like. There's also a key to understanding the evidence. It's like a little drop-down arrow. If you click on that arrow, it'll give you some more information about how to understand the ratings. There's some videos as well to make it a little more user-friendly for some of the, just understanding the ratings themselves. And then there's a whole big list of different programs that are evidence rated. So if you want to go there, you'll be able to see lots of things. If it's not included in there, that whatever program you're looking for, then at this time we have not found that there's sufficient evidence that meets the criteria that has been selected for that repository.
As far as emailing for the recording or PowerPoint, you can email jbasden@fsu.edu. I've linked the email in there as well.
To answer Hope's question, she asked, what was the website again? Dr. Gans was referring to FCRR's website. There is a link on their page. It's Educator Resources, and that is where that information is located.
Oh, I think you're muted.
I forgot that. I'm so used to just immediately muting after and then forget that I have to respond. I'm going to put the link in the chat in just 1 second. I'm pulling it up right now.
Perfect. All right. I hope we didn't miss any questions. There's lots of comments. So I'm just scrolling through. I don't. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. I think that was everything. All right, well, we want to thank you so much for attending this morning. We know that all of you here today have an extremely busy schedule, and so we really want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule today. At this time, there are no other trainings scheduled. There was an email that came through just a minute ago, Randy and Monica. There's no other training scheduled at this point that we are aware of. Is there anything else that they're going to need to attend as far as training or follow-up at this point?
We do not have any more trainings planned right now. We are talking about offering them again, possibly maybe one over the summer, possibly maybe one at the beginning of next school year, and then one again maybe in January, but we'll keep everybody in the loop through our district reading contacts for that.
Okay, perfect. And then are they required to proof of attendance for training? Are they required to show proof of attendance for any of the trainings?
not for the high school tutoring raise program. For this program, for the assurance, I would just kind of keep something as your evidence with your district. But that's as far as I know about keeping track of that.
Yes, so with the assurances, you were just stating that you attended. We don't have certificates of completion or certificates of proof of attendance that we will be sending out, but you will keep track of the dates and the times that you attended the training, and that would serve to meet the assurances.
Yeah, acceptable evidence would be like training materials. So you could, that's a way for you to have evidence that you've completed that assurance for the grant.
Perfect. And then as far as getting a copy of the PowerPoint, again, just if you send me an email, I will work on that today, getting those copies of the PowerPoints and recordings out to everybody that has requested it. We will be posting the recording along with the PowerPoint and any other materials or links on the FCRR website very, very soon. And there will also be a link on the Just Read Florida website very soon. That's just in the final stages of production. So that will be accessible to everybody within a few days. All right. If we missed your question or you need to talk to us more, again, just reach out. We're happy to support you. Again, we want to thank everybody for attending today, and we hope that you have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much, everyone.